tonight we're going to be discussing the personal statement. We're going to be providing some tips and tricks for crafting your personal statement. And we will have Q&A towards the end of the session. You can just drop any questions that you have along the way, and I will get to them at the end of the presentation. So my name is Jennifer. I've been a quad consultant for a couple of years now. Before that, was working in college guidance, directing the program at a private institution here in Maryland, where I'm based. And prior to that, I directed study abroad programs across the country and helped students find their ideal university abroad. I did my undergraduate education at Harvard and did my graduate education abroad in Japan. So what we want to be doing here is covering a couple of things, couple of topics. Now the screen that I'm using is a little too small for me to read, so hold on 1 second with me while I get this pulled up where I can read it. There we go. Introductions. Holly, are you with us? Yay! So that, yeah, those are our introduction slides. And there's my screen that I can read. Do we have Dan, or is it just me? So I've already done the introductions. We can go on to the next one. Okay, so the purpose of the personal statement. So the main purpose of the personal statement in your college application is that you are going to be able to introduce yourself and say some really key things about the person that you are and the amazing student that you are and how you will contribute to the campus community once you are on the campus that you're applying to. So admissions officers, when they're reading your personal statement, they're looking for a couple of things. They're looking for who you are as a person, distinct from who you are as a student. Like what makes you you? Some unique qualities, some unique stories that you might want to share about what your motivation is, what your passions are, what your talents are about, and then really kind of articulating how you're going to translate that into a community setting. And if you're working on your prompts, your essays for this year for your college applications, you've probably already looked at the personal statement prompts that are put out every year by Common App. They've been updated. They go live in, I think it's the end of the summer every year. And so the first one, and a very popular one, is really sharing an aspect of your story, of your own personal identity that is very important to you and is very crucial in shaping who you are. You want to make sure that you are going to be able to form a personal connection with admissions officers as you're writing this story. So you want to make sure that you're not repeating any high school achievements. You definitely don't want to duplicate things that are going to be found elsewhere in your application. This could be something about your family upbringing, your culture, a faith community that you're a part of, a personality trait that you have, etc. And that is going to be some successful topics. Those will represent some successful topics for you as you're navigating this first prompt, if that's the one that you choose. Each year you're given a selection of prompts and you choose one, and you are going to write about 600 words to 650 words is the maximum. You don't want to write a 300-word essay for this one. You want to make it as long as you can. So you want to choose a topic that's going to give you a lot of content that you can work with. The next prompt that you might consider is the second one is talking about personal growth. For this prompt, if you're interested here, we would advise that you choose something that's maybe a significant milestone or it can be a smaller realization that you had along the way, but something that had a profound impact on you and caused you to grow or, you know, evolve in a certain direction. In this prompt, the schools are going to be looking to see some maturity on your part, some thoughtful reflection. And so you really want to bring the reader along is one of the guidelines that we give here at Quad, rather than telling them about the experience so that your narration feels kind of distant. You want to really involve your reader, and we can give you tips and tricks for how you do that as you're structuring your narrative. The third one is also very popular, where you're given the chance to talk about an obstacle that you may have encountered. This should be something that's reasonably in the past so that you have a narrative of how you have overcome this particular challenge. It could be related to a course. It could be related to a learning difference or a mental health challenge that you may have had, a family situation. Anything can be good material for this prompt. And with that, you really want to show that you've got perseverance, you've got courage, you're not afraid to share the story that you are going to be narrating in this essay. And you've made significant progress on the other side of the challenge so that you can also demonstrate what we call college readiness. We really want to show the college that whatever the struggle or challenge is that we're talking about, it's in the past. We're looking at it through the rearview mirror. We've developed lots of strategies to work through it, and we've grown as in the process and as a result. And we're also maybe going to be interested in helping other students who have had this particular challenge. So my advice, if you're pursuing this prompt, is to have about 1/3 to 1/4 of your essay be describing the challenge itself, and then the remaining 2/3 to 3/4 of your essay talking about the process that you worked through to overcome it, and then talking about your learning and how you want to share the outcome of that growth in the future, and what lessons you want to help others learn that you've learned. So that kind of collaborative community member is what you would be highlighting in this essay if you choose this. The fourth one is challenging a belief, and this is an abstract one. It can be a little tough. And my guidance to the students that I work with is that if you can't immediately come up with a topic, if something doesn't pop to your mind when you're looking at these, it might not be the right topic for you. That's why they give you a choice of so many different prompts. But maybe this one really does ring true for you, and you have had an evolution in your way of thinking, in your belief system, in your value system, what you hold important. And that's really a key aspect of yourself that you want the admissions committees to know about. So if that is true for you, then you would want to engage with the process of writing for this prompt. It needs to be specific, relevant, and you need to be able to reflect thoughtfully on it. You don't want to pick anything super contentious. You want to really have this be a personal story. The admissions committees are not interested so much in what you think about XYZ current topics. They want to know who you are as a person, and so you want to choose judiciously if you're going to be answering this prompt, something that's really deeply important to you, and share that as a personal reflection. For the fifth one, which is solving a problem, you would be deciding really like how to navigate a challenge and a problem, how you're going to be working through that, and then how you addressed it and what you learned from the experience. All right, so with that kind of overview of some of the prompts that are available to you, we want you to think about some brainstorming exercises and strategies for how you can surface, content. Okay, sorry. I just saw that you didn't see prompt 4. I'm going to go back to that real quick for challenging a belief and let you guys read through that as well. Sorry about that. And then we'll move on. Okay. And this will be sent out as well. So you will have access to these slides as a reward for attending today and being so patient with us. So a couple of different ways that we recommend surfacing your content. One is a good old-fashioned free write, where you just sit down and turn on a timer for 20 or 30 minutes and see what your imagination comes up with, things that are important to you. You might list out significant experiences. You might engage in what's called a mind mapping exercise, and you might reflect on some of your values as a result. So these are all kind of linked together as one possible journey through, and it'll surface experiences for you. It'll also bring to mind maybe some experiences and background information that you weren't thinking of for your college application process. It's also really helpful, in my opinion, to talk to other people, ask them for their perspective on you as a student, on you as a person. You can surface some adjectives, some nouns that you feel like describe you, and those that know you well can do the same thing. And that can be very helpful in this. Other processes that we recommend you engage in, you can think about role models, people that have been important to you and some values that they have held. You might talk with them as well if they're accessible to you. A favorite of students is to read successful personal statements. Hopkins has gone to great lengths to put on their website personal essays that worked. And so that's one option for you. But I caution you about this because I have had students who read, 40 or 50 personal statements and then got so turned around, they didn't even really know which way was up anymore and were pretty stressed about how they should sound and what their personal essay should convey. When in truth, what you're wanting to convey is yourself. And so everyone's personal statement is by definition going to be very unique. And you can glance at a couple to get some ideas and some strategies or some formats, or just kind of get a feel for what is this when they talk about show and don't tell? What does that actually mean? And how does that look on a page? That can be useful to you, but don't overread. Don't spend too much time in this area. You want to think about passion projects, number 7 here, projects that have been very meaningful to you from organizations that you've been involved in and done fundraising for. Might be something all the way to activities at your school that have been meaningful to you, to research projects that you've done. It can be any topic as long as it is something that makes you uniquely, captures your unique interest. And you have had lots of ideas about what you want to do and maybe some accomplishments. Maybe you've written a blog or you've written a book. I have a lot of students now who are writing books and sharing your thoughts and your passions in that way. And then, as I mentioned before, it's very important to seek feedback about your project. So you want to judiciously share your idea with your counselor, with a teacher, with a family member or two. But if you get 15 different opinions, you're going to end up getting confused. So you want to be careful about how many people you're actually engaging in the process of, reflecting on your idea and or your writing itself. And then a few more tips and tricks are to create an anecdote bank, which we define as just a collection of stories about you. They don't have to be related. They can just be important memories that you and your family might have, where you think it really shows something about you. Remember, there was the time that da-da-da-da-da happened, and this is what we did as a result. That's the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about. Then you want to do some reflection on challenges that you faced and growth that happened as a result. So that's also very valuable time spent. And considering your future goals is another area where you can spend some time thinking, well, how does college link to what I want to do in the future? And how is that going to be a part of what I want to share here? Now, a couple of things that aren't written on the documents that I'd just like to kind of add in from my personal experience is that you might need different versions of your personal statement depending on where you're applying. Many of the school supplemental essays give you the opportunity to talk about your academic interests. They give you an opportunity to talk about any research that you might have done. They give you all kinds of focused essays where you describe what you want to study, what you want to do with that major after you graduate from college, how you want to make use of the university's resources, etc. So for that school, you need to have all of that great academic research accomplishments. You need to have that content available to make use of it in the supplemental essays. And therefore, your personal statement needs to be just that. Very, very personal, nothing touching academics at all, because you know you're going to write about that. So you might choose a community that you've been a part of. You might choose that #1 prompt that talks about your personal identity, experiences that are important to you, etc. But then there are going to be other schools where either they're not asking in their supplemental essays for those academic and research experiences, or there may be schools that don't have any supplemental essays at all. Northeastern, Drexel, Ohio State, Arizona State, the list goes on. There are a number of schools that just don't require a supplemental essay. But you might really want to tell them about your academic or research experience. So in that case, I have worked with students to have 2 different versions of their personal statement. One that they're going to send to schools in that first category where they're going to write about their academics and research in the supplemental essays, and one when they're not. So think about that. It might seem like extra work. It is a little bit of extra work, but it might really bring a lot of benefit to you depending on your individual school strategy. And that's something that your quad counselor can help you navigate. All right, so tips on choosing a great topic for your personal statement. You really want to consider your core message. What's the main message or theme that you want to convey to the admissions committee? What do you want people who are never going to meet you, but who are going to decide whether you're admitted or not, to know about you as a person? And then, again, be about the business of highlighting some of your unique qualities, things that you're able to showcase about yourself that might set you apart from the thousands of other students who have top GPAs and are wanting to do computer science at Carnegie Mellon, right? So what makes you uniquely you, and how are you going to stand out in that applicant pool? Then you also want to consider the relevance to your program. Think about your topic and how it might relate or might completely not relate, given the examples I cited earlier, to your program of study. Know that for some of those schools, you're going to have the chance to make that winning argument in the supplemental essays, where they're really asking you, why do you want to study this at Purdue? Why is it that you've chosen this major to pursue at Cornell? And what is it about our school that makes you want to study it here? Again, you're going to save that content for the supplemental essays. Maybe you still have something that has helped shaped you into the aspiring major in STEM or in music or whatever field of study you plan on pursuing in college. There may be a very relevant anecdote that otherwise won't make it into your application. So think carefully about that. And then again, as I've said throughout the presentation, we want you to pick a topic that's going to help you highlight your growth and your personal transformation. So that's a very important theme that comes out in a successful personal statement. So again, we're wanting you to showcase a passion of yours, whether it's a hobby or an interest. That might be a good focus area for your statement. But if you're talking about something that you love doing, you want to make sure that the focus stays on you as well. Don't get too deep into the process of making ceramics or playing the tuba or whatever it might be. You don't want to get so technical or so into the process that we lose sight of you. There should always be a focus on yourself and what it's like for you to engage in that hobby or that pursuit throughout the essay in order for it to be really sounding authentic and keeping your reader engaged. You have to picture the folks that are reading these essays are reading thousands of them. And you want to have something that, is skimmable, is a great illustration of who you are, and is also really engaging and intriguing to read. So you need to make it about you. If you're talking about a family situation, that's great. You're talking about any kind of other group of people you're a part of, that's fantastic. But the relevant person that they want to get to know is you. So make sure that that remains the focus of your essay. So that is what we had in terms of content for you to share with you this evening. And I would be happy to entertain any questions that you might have, either about something that I covered or something that I didn't cover. You're welcome to jot a question down in the chat, and I'll be able to see it and respond to you. I do think that there's a couple of other pieces of advice I'll give you while we're waiting for questions to come in. I do think that it can be a little bit intimidating to do this kind of writing, and I think that's very understandable. You're writing to a group of adults that you've never met before, and you're sharing something that's very personal to you. It could be a very private thing that's still very important to you. So you have to decide whether you're comfortable. Some topics you may be like, it's really important to me, but it's not something I'm comfortable sharing in this environment. And that's totally your own call. And you need to make sure that you feel comfortable with whatever topic you select. The other aspect in terms of the technical process of writing your personal statement is, as I mentioned, many schools do have these shorter, more focused supplemental essays. And sometimes when I'm working with my students who don't have a clear idea of what they want to write, or they're really gifted in math and science, they're not as gifted in writing, and they're just intimidated by a 600-word personal essay, we'll start on the supplements, and we'll get all the content there and get all of that ready, and then work backwards. It's a reverse engineering process where then you end up, in the end, you're writing your personal statement. Also, some of us, myself included, have had struggles in the past with perfectionism. And you may get hooked in this cycle of, I am going to get these Stanford essays perfect before I move on to anything else because Stanford is my REA school. And that can work against you. So one thing that I will suggest to some students is to write your drafts to where they're good enough. Get the personal statement to where you can live with it, but it's not perfect. You're not going to submit it yet. Put it to the side and work on other things. So those are just some additional tips and tricks. Let me see if I can read this. Hold on one moment. If there's a student with a GPA below the 25th percentile of a certain university, how much more would the essay matter relative to the students who have a perfect GPA? Okay, that's great. And another question, should you choose the prompt first and answer the prompt, or write what you want to say and fit the writing to one of the prompts, which strategy works better in general? That's a great question, Ethan. Thank you for bringing that up. You can go either way, right? There's not, the only right answer is what works for you. So sometimes we are working with a topic that seems like it could go with one or more of the Common App prompts, in which case, do exactly what you suggested, Ethan. You write the essay, and then we look at it and we match it to the different prompts and see each one has a slightly different emphasis. And there are some that'll fit automatically in one or the other, but there are some that, you know, maybe they could go here with some tweaking, or maybe they could go here with some tweaking. At the end of the day, the only thing that you do to indicate the prompt that you've chosen in the Common App is you select one circle on a choice and you indicate which essay you're responding to, and then you cut and paste your essay into it. And so it can go either direction, whichever way works best for you, okay? And then for the other question that came in about the scores and the percentiles, schools will tell you that they give every application a holistic review. Many schools engage in that process. So each essay is read and weighted equally amongst all of the other variables that the school is assessing. So not every student with a 1600 SAT score and a 4.0 GPA gets into every school. And there are some characteristics and qualities that are going to set those super, super high achieving students apart from each other. So the essay is going to come into play in that arena. There are also students that, as you mentioned, might be below the school's 25th percentile cutoff. And among those candidates, the essays are going to be used as a determining factor as well. So it's there's so much art that goes into the admissions process. There's the science of, you know, do you have the fit for the academic program? How are your grades and all of that? But then there's really this more amorphous, how are we going to assess fit process between the student and the school. And that is brought about it's brought to life through the essay and through the recommendation letters. It's a great idea to share your essay if your recommenders are willing to read it. Some are, some aren't. But that will give them, in addition to a brag sheet or whatever other materials you're providing for them, that will give them a great window into who you are as a student, who you are as an applicant, and what they can expect from you as a member of their community. That looks like all of the questions that have come in. I want to thank you all very much for your patience this evening and for making the time to be with us, and invite you to contact Quad for further information on how we could work with you to support you in your college application journey. Have a good night.